Yesterday I did color glass condensate, and towards the end of the lecture I sort of rushed a little bit because the time was running out. If there are any questions about CTC, please ask now. So then I'm going to start some new topic. No questions? Okay. I'm going to start with fluid dynamics. How many of you have studied fluid dynamics in your courses? Yes, studied. Relativistic, non-relativistic? Anybody else? Studied relativistic or non-relativistic? Relativistic? It's only about 4 or 5. Okay, so this fluid dynamics is loosely called hydrodynamics. Now, suppose you have, let me define what I mean by microscopic suppose you have many body system. And you are in non-relativistic domain, and the most straightforward way would be to use Newtonian mechanics. That would be the macroscopic picture. But once the number of particles becomes large, let's say number of particles is like an Avogadro number, this is completely useless approach because we cannot keep track of all the 10 raised to 23 particles. So this is of no use. And approaches the Avogadro number. Even much earlier, several particles also become very difficult to handle with Newtonian mechanics. So one needs some statistical approach, and that is provided by kinetic theory. The statistical description. Because as I said, it needs the existence of Cauchy particles. And even this is not always convenient, so one can go to particle fluid dynamics. And it is applicable even when Cauchy particles. So here, of course, you know what are the degrees of freedom in the Newtonian case. Equations handle what? The positions and velocities and momenta of the individual particles. If you go to statistical description, then we don't have that. Well, we replace that by the f of x comma p, which is the phase space density in the phase space. Only in the collision term the particle moment occurs, individual particle moment occurs. And here, fluid dynamics, individual particle degrees of freedom do not occur. We'll see what variables are involved in this case. So in a sense, this is like more fundamental, and one is, if you go downward, this is, in some sense, it's more fundamental. And this is more effective. More fundamental theory, and this is more effective theory as you go from Newtonian mechanics to kinetic theory to fluid dynamics. Now this is not the only way one can proceed. And this is one way kinetic theory can give fluid dynamics. But one can also derive this from field theory, quantum field theory. So in this case, quantum field theory is more fundamental than the fluid dynamics. And this field theory may or may not admit or allow any quasi-particles. May or may not admit. In terms of quasi-particles. In kinetic theory, we saw in previous lectures that the mean free path plays a role. Mean free path of the particles plays an important role, but it sets some length scale. In the case of quantum field theory, there is no mean free path, but 1 upon temperature plays the role of mean free path. Provides a microscopic scale. Then effective microscopic theory effective microscopic theory that describes the slow and long wavelength motion of a fluid. So I am going to explain what is meant by slow and what is meant by long wavelength. And if you are interested only in long wavelength and slow motion, then the fluid is near or at equilibrium. So this is close to local thermodynamics. So let me define some quantities. A is a wave number, or is that some characteristic momentum scale relevant for the motion of the fluid as a whole. This is a wave number, and frequency. frequency of this is a wave motion, so there is a corresponding frequency, and this is the wave number. So both these variables refer to the bulk motion of the fluid. We can also define some variables which refer to the microscopic motion of individual particles. Unlike here, this is bulk motion. I'm going to define L, which is the mean free path, and tau, mean free time. So they refer to the constituent particles. Bulk fluid motion on one hand and constituent particle motion on the other hand. So that is the two scales we are talking about. One is the large scale, this is the small scale. So quantitatively, so I am going to make this statement quantitative. What is meant by slow and long wavelength? So this is this quantitatively. K into L is the wave number into mean free path to be very small compared to 1, and this frequency and this time should also be very small compared to 1. So this is what is called hydrodynamic regime. What does this mean? You can write this as L very small compared to 1 upon K. 1 upon K is the length scale or the wavelength. So the mean free path is very small compared to the wavelength or long wavelength. That's the meaning of long wavelength. 1 upon K is a wavelength and is very long compared to the mean free path. Now what is meant by slow motion? Again, you can write this tau very small compared to 1 upon omega. 1 upon omega is the period of wave motion. So that is very long compared to the mean free time. So that is meant by the slow motion. Motion of the fluid as a whole is very slow compared to the motion of individual particles. Right? 1 upon K would be a wavelength, and 1 upon omega is the period. So this is, if this condition is satisfied, then you are in a hydrodynamic regime. On the other hand, if A, L is about 1 and omega t is also about 1, if mean free path and this wavelengths are comparable, then this is the transport series or kinetic series regime. And the other extreme, that KL very large compared to 1, and omega tau very large compared to 1. Opposite of this. So what's happening here? L is very large compared to 1 upon K. Mean free path is very large, and mean free time is also very large. So what kind of motion is it describing? Huh? Free, it's almost free. Particle is moving almost free. Mean free path is very large. So it's nearly free particle regime. a powerful technique because all that it needs are the initial conditions and the equation of state of the matter. So given these, it can tell you how the system evolves in time. The only requirement is the initial conditions and the equation of state. Given only the initial conditions, it could be initial T mu nu. And the equation of state of the matter. So given these two things, it can predict the future of the system. Is a good thing about it, but limitation is, as I have been saying very often, it is applicable only at or near the equilibrium. Near local equilibrium. So these are general remarks about fluid dynamics, but our interest, of course, is relativistic fluid dynamics. So why do we need relativistic fluid dynamics? There are two possible situations where relativistic fluid dynamics is required. One, where the velocities which are relevant are comparable to the velocity of light. The bulk motion of the whole fluid can be relativistic. Velocity of the bulk or macroscopic motion of fluid is comparable to c. That is one possible situation. And other way, the gravitational field can be very strong, in which case you need general relativistic formula. Fluid dynamics based on GR. Gravitational field is strong enough to require description in terms of GR.
There is possibility that as a whole fluid is not relativistic but microscopic means particles are relativistic.
That is also possible.
In that situation also
yeah, but in that case, in fluid dynamics does not the variables do not include individual particle degrees of freedom. However, if that is what happens, then the equation of state will have to be suitably modified. So again, the equation will be affected because the equation of motion for relativistic individual particles.
So what would be an example of that?
Of what you were saying? You can have, suppose there is no bulk motion, like a stationary star, but the matter inside is moving relativistically, in which case we will need relativistic matter near the black hole or very heavy stars, compact stars. But in this talk, of course, I'm not going to talk about GR. I'm going to talk only about spatial relativistic fluid dynamics, because that's what we need in case of heavy ion collision. So, only spatial relativity and not general relativity. Heavy ion collisions is what we are interested in. But in astrophysics also, there are astrophysical jets coming out of active galactic nuclei or supernova or gamma ray bursts, in which case also astrophysical jets. So astrophysicists also would be interested in relativistic fluid dynamics. In case of cosmology also, fluid dynamics would be required. Flow of matter near black holes, for example, you would need relativistic fluid dynamics. So let me start with perfect fluid. Or it could be non-relativistic or relativistic, and in each case it could be perfect or imperfect. Here also it could be perfect. In case of here, what is the equation called? Do you know? Perfect non-relativistic fluid dynamics equation. Those who have studied fluid dynamics. Euler, not Navier. Perfect fluid, only Euler equation. In the case of imperfect fluid, what you said, right? Navier. But this is the lowest order imperfect equation. There are higher orders equation also, and they go by the name Burnett. This is, in a sense, this is zeroth order, this is first order, this is second order. Zeroth order, first order, second order. And order is the gradients of velocity, gradients of the fluid velocity. Occurring in, if you write an expression for say, shear viscosity, there is no shear viscosity here, it's perfect fluid, so there is zeroth order. In the case of Navier-Stokes equation, shear viscosity is written as in terms of the first derivative of velocity. Here the second derivative of velocity is also occurred. So that's scientific. And even higher order people have talked about. They're called super Burnett equation. In this case, it is again relativistic Euler. In perfect case, relativistic Navier-Stokes. And correspondingly, second order equations are called Israel's two. This is zeroth order, this is first order, this is second order. And even third order formalisms exist in this. So, of course, our aim is to go here with imperfect relativistic fluid dynamics, but for the sake of completeness, I will make some comments about these other theories also. So, let me start with perfect and non-relativistic case. what is the definition of a perfect fluid? Viscosity is 0. There are two ways of defining. The first definition is given by, for example, Landau-Lifshitz. The first definition is that all transport coefficients vanish. Coefficient of shear viscosity eta, then coefficient of bulk viscosity zeta, coefficient of thermal conductivity kappa, they all vanish. There are other transport coefficients, but all of them vanish in the case of perfect fluid. So if this happens, then okay, this is one definition of perfect fluid. Another definition given in Weinberg's book on gravitation and cosmology. He defines it. Imagine a fluid is moving, and look at some element of the fluid and go to that frame in which that fluid element is at rest. It's called a co-moving observer, or you're going to the local rest frame of the fluid, and in that frame the observer sees the fluid isotropic. Cannot distinguish one direction from another. So that is another way of defining perfect fluid. Let me write it. Perfect fluid and having at each point velocity v such that observer moving with this velocity let me introduce some jargon. This is called co-moving frame, and it's called co-moving observer, or is also called local rest frame. So it varies from local rest frame is a function of space-time. And so there is a corresponding local velocity.
Are these two definitions equivalent?
Yeah, they are equivalent. We'll see why they are equivalent. In this case, local equilibrium is maintained. Fluid is perfect, then it's always in local equilibrium. In the case of imperfect fluid, local equilibrium is not strictly maintained. Because there are friction, for example, which generates entropy. So entropy is continuously being generated here, so it's not strictly in equilibrium. While here there is no entropy generation, so it remains in equilibrium. This is the first point. And these quantities, the fluid dynamic variables like pressure, velocity, density, since we are talking about local equilibrium, so they may depend on space-time, may be space-time dependent. But not over the scale of mean free path. Only if you go long enough, far enough, only then these will change. But they won't change over the mean free path. They may be space-time dependent, but only over, but not over distance equal to mean free path or time equal to mean free time. While in this case, they change appreciably. Over mean free path or mean free time. Now, do you see the equivalence of the two definitions? What is equivalence?
The derivatives of
Observer who is co-moving in the perfect fluid will see that these variables are not changing around him. So there is an isotropy here. While the observer here will see that these are changing over length scale or time scale as small as the mean free path. So there is no isotropy. All directions are not equal here. There will be gradients of all these quantities. Here they don't change, no matter where you look. So there is an isotropy here. Here there is no isotropy.
Sir, for both of the fluid, globally there will be no equilibrium.
Globally, if there is, if global equilibrium may or may not be there, there is no requirement, it has to be in global equilibrium. But the requirement that local equilibrium is maintained. There is no requirement about, no statement about global equilibrium.
No, but you said for fluid dynamics to work, you need near equilibrium situation.
Yes, near. It can be at equilibrium or near equilibrium.
So this near equilibrium is for local equilibrium.
Not for global.
Yes.
And so where when you said that you were doing a expansion in terms of gradients?
That I am going to discuss in by perfect fluid. because there are gradients of these quantities, there is no isotropy in the case of imperfect fluid. At least one of the transport coefficients should be non-zero. So imperfect is a more general term. You just talk about viscous fluid, then either eta or zeta should be non-zero. Eta and or zeta not. These are just some words which you need to know. In viscid fluid, both are zero. I'm not saying anything about thermal conductivity. You can have these two zero, but thermal conductivity may be non-vanishing. So that would still be imperfect fluid. So viscous fluid, inviscid fluid. Now, ideal and perfect, there is often a confusion. Some authors don't distinguish between the two, ideal fluid or perfect fluid, but some authors do. They distinguish between the two. So let me explain what is the difference. For those who distinguish between these two terms, ideal fluid is the one which obeys the ideal equation of state, like the ideal gas equation that you are familiar with. So if the fluid or gas obeys that ideal equation of state, then it is called the ideal fluid. Ideal fluid, that which obeys is P equals NKT, is ideal gas equation. If the gas obeys this equation, then that is called ideal gas. Let's look at this carefully. What is meant by ideal gas? The ideal gas, what about the collisions, interparticle collisions? Are they allowed? There are no interparticle collisions. So what is the path? And what was the definition of viscosity? Viscosity is a measure of what? Shear viscosity. I had written it some time ago. It measures yeah, that's true, but in case of momentum, the transport coefficient. So what is it? The shear viscosity measures something, is a measure of something. transport what? What quantity? Momentum is a measure of ability to transport momentum. And if the mean-free path is infinitely large, the momentum will also be transported over a long distance. So it's a large viscosity. So highly imperfect. Ideal gas is highly imperfect because the viscosity is divergent. Mean-free path is divergent. So that is the usual paradox. Ideal gas is a fluid, but it's not a perfect fluid. So ideal means no collisions, means eta, which is the ability to transport momentum. Over a distance. That goes to infinity. So this is this paradox. Nearly ideal classical gas has a divergent eta, that is the coefficient of shear viscosity. And therefore it's not a perfect fluid. So gas is a fluid. But ideal gas is not a perfect fluid. Perfect fluid is of course hypothetical. In real life there are no perfect fluids. There is no internal friction and no heat exchange. Because there is no coefficient of viscosity, either shear or bulk. There is no conductivity, so no heat exchange. The motion is adiabatic. And its entropy is conserved. Adiabatic means what is zero? dq is zero. And entropy is conserved means dH is zero. There are two different statements. They are not always the same. Only in reversible processes they are equivalent, not otherwise. And because of this, the thermal equilibrium is maintained.
So if you have a situation where there is a heat gradient in a perfect fluid,
There is a heat gradient,
uh,
temperature gradient.
temperature gradient, sorry.
But if the conductivity is zero, there will be no conduction of heat.
No conduction of heat, so it will never equilibrate.
Yes.
Even though mean free path is zero, there are lots of collisions between particles, etc. It will never equilibrate.
There are a lot of collisions, and then what it says?
But it will never equilibrate.
It will. Yeah, but you can have a local equilibrium, but not global. When you're talking about temperature, means there is a local equilibrium.
I understand, yeah. But the whole system will not
It
equilibrate.
will not be. It will not attain global equilibrium because heat is not getting conducted. Or you are maintaining some reservoir, heat reservoir at higher temperature and lower
No,
temperature.
I'm not maintaining. I'm just starting with a little bit of heat here, little bit of heat gradient. And I'm
But
letting
this
it.
is for ideal, completely hypothetical case. But there is some conduction of heat.
In reality, yes, but he is referring to a perfect fluid in which you, by hand, you maintain temperature difference. But if there is no conduction, then the temperature gradient will remain.
So which assumption of, so here Boltzmann's theorem is not being satisfied, I guess, because it's not going to.
I didn't get what? Which?
So Boltzmann says that you leave any system to, if there are lots of interactions, it will equilibrate. That is not happening here, so some assumption is being violated of that, right?
So Boltzmann must be talking about the real fluids or real gases. This is hypothetical.
Oh.
Fluid is a continuous medium. And when we say infinitesimal, fluid element, infinitesimal fluid element or fluid particle or point in a fluid when you say point in a fluid or a fluid element, infinitesimally small fluid element, we are not talking about geometry. In geometry, point is a point. But in fluid dynamics, when you talk about fluid element, it's actually some small element of volume which contains huge number of particles. Which of course that is much smaller than the overall size of the system, but it is large enough so that it contains huge number of particles. Those particles are needed to keep that fluid element or drop in equilibrium. You know the Avogadro number is 10 raised to 23, so you can estimate in a very small volume of water, let's say, less than 1 millimeter, fraction of a millimeter cube, how many water molecules are there. You will estimate it comes out to be something just 15 or 16 or some huge number. So that's what we mean by fluid element. Whenever we talk about point in a fluid or
This element size is larger than the mean free path.
yeah, it has to be larger, otherwise you cannot apply fluid dynamics.
It's much larger than mean free path.
This contains a great many particles. Very great number of particles.
So Rajiv, sorry to come back to that.
Yeah.
So is it that the assumption of molecular chaos is being violated there? Because the mean free path is infinite, you need to take into account collisions of extremely close particles and then the distribution functions are not independent?
In fluid dynamics, there is no
No,
distribution.
no, I was just trying to think which assumption of Boltzmann gets violated.
So locally there is thermal equilibrium. So locally there is no variation of the fluid. But globally,
There's no collision.
Yeah.
Well, lots of collisions.
So because of collisions, local equilibrium is maintained. So temperature is there. But,
in that already.
yeah. So in locally, Boltzmann, there is no violation of any assumption made by Boltzmann. As I said before, going to relativistic, I have to say something about non-relativistic perfect. So you need to specify the description of the, or give the description of the fluid. You need various quantities. This is the density of the fluid at some point r, at some point at time t, then velocity, entropy, density, or energy density. This is entropy density. And pressure. This is the fluid velocity. This is the so how many variables are there? 1 plus 3 makes it 4. Choose one of them, 5, and then 6. So there are 6 quantities of 6 variables. So to define the theory, we need 6 equations satisfied by these equations. Need 6 equations. I am ignoring electromagnetic effects. Otherwise, this will be even more complicated. You need some other variables, but let's ignore electromagnetic effects. So 6 variables and we need 6 equations. So what are those 6 equations? I'm not going to derive them. And Euler equation I would like you to derive, or maybe if there is time I can do it in the class. But one is the continuity equation, which is del rho by del T plus
But there are not 6 variables. There are 5 variables.
I said this or this. So 1, 3, 1 and
Okay.
this is a well-known continuity equation. This is the peak current. So it connects the divergence of the current with the density variation. What is the physics of this? What is it telling you? Conservation of mass. similar to the charge conservation equation that you see in electrostatics or electricity magnetism. Instead of rho, which is the mass density here, there it is charge density. But form of the equation is the same. So this can be called mass flux density vector. One can consider a special case of incompressible fluid, in which divergence of velocity is zero, and that I am not going to do. Incompressible fluid is the one in which divergence of velocity is zero. Divergence of only velocity, not rho. So you can write this as, expand this as two terms, and one of the terms will vanish. Okay, so this is one equation. Then there are three more equations satisfied by the velocity. Del P by del C. Sometimes this is also denoted as d of v. So this is an equation satisfied by the fluid velocity, E is the pressure, and this is what is called Euler equation. Later on we will derive a relativistic version of this. This is non-relativistic Euler equation. Again, what is the physics of this? Just as here it was conservation of moment mass, conservation of momentum, the momentum balance equation. Euler equation, or is also called equation of motion, or momentum balance equation, or just apply Newton's second law to a fluid element, you will get this equation. So in a sense, this is an acceleration. Tells you how the fluid accelerates because of pressure gradient. Pressure varies from point to point, and fluid will accelerate, and this is the expression for the acceleration. Dimensionally, this is force upon mass. And that's this D, yes, it's called, it has many names. It's called substantial derivative. It's D. Because the derivative with not at a fixed point, but with the fluid. When you derive this, you will realize that the derivation or derivative as moving in the moving frame, not at a fixed time or space. So that's why it's called substantial derivative or co-moving derivative. Or material derivative, various names. So look at this Euler equation. Is it linear? Is it linear equation? It's not linear. It's non-linear in velocity. V occurs. V is the second order term. It's non-linear. And so it's not easy to solve, but there are ways to solve this. So we have got 4 equations, we need 2 more. It could be either entropy, I said either entropy density or energy density. So there is an equation for this, or you can write equation for this, but they are equivalent. You pick up one of them. So I will write both of them. Entropy equation is also called adiabatic equation. Or entropy conservation equation. That is, the total entropy is being conserved. V is by the T. And it can also be called continuity equation for entropy. Looks like this. It has the same form as this equation number 1 there. It was a continuity equation for mass. This is a continuity equation for entropy density. Mass density and entropy density. So you choose either this or energy equation. Or energy balance equation. That energy has to be conserved. That equation looks like this. I'm not deriving this, but I think the physics should be obvious. This is just seen many times, continuity equation. This is Euler equation which we'll derive in the tutorial. This is also, it looks reasonable, entropy conservation, similar to mass conservation. And this is energy equation, which is not so easy to understand. So I will explain the meaning of this. It takes too long to derive it, so I will just explain what this means. To understand the meaning of this, it is convenient to integrate over volume. You could have integrated this over a volume, or the equation number 1 also over a volume, and then you know how to interpret that. Similarly, here you can integrate this over volume, del by del T. volume element. Yes, we can get it. Suppose you had integrated this over volume, you would have got del by del t equal to dE. So this integral is, what is this integral? It's a mass, because integrating density or volume. Rate of change of mass in some volume is related to how much of it is going out. J dot d sigma, this is the current, mass current. How much it is going out is given by this. It is just mass conservation. Similarly here, the left hand side, okay, this is okay, look, this is kinetic energy. And this is internal energy density. One half rho v square is the kinetic energy density. Epsilon is internal energy density. So this is sort of total energy and integrated. So total energy density integrated over volume will give you total energy. Rate of change of that energy within that volume is the left hand side. On the right hand side now we have a term like this which tells you how much of it is flowing out. Similar to the right hand side there. But we have something extra here, which was not present in that equation. So this is kinetic energy plus internal energy density transported through the energy transported through the surface. In unit time, of course. Kinetic energy plus internal energy transported through the surface in unit time because of the motion of the fluid. But this is something extra which was not there. And what is this? Pressure times velocity times area. Velocity is like distance upon time.
So what the
Sorry?
power?
It is, okay, if you look at P into D sigma, that is the force. This is length. Force into length is the work done per unit time. So this is a fluid, when it's expanding, it is doing work, so it's losing energy. So that was something you have to account for. This is the work done. Work done by pressure per unit time. So we are have got how many equations? 5. And this doesn't complete the set of equations. So there are 6 variables and there are only 5 equations. So we need one more equation, which is the equation of state. So this is equation number 6, equation of state. Equation of state connects thermodynamic variables like pressure, can be a function of rho and epsilon. So this is the fixed equation needed. And there are various forms. It could be P as a function of rho and entropy density, or you may want to write P as a function of rho and P, and epsilon as a function of rho and P. Pressure and energy density are being expressed individually in terms of temperature. You can eliminate temperature and you will get this. You can eliminate temperature. So these are the 6 equations which completely determine these 6 variables. Sometimes here, if P is of this form, it depends only on, for certain kinds of flows, if this is good enough, P depends only on rho, in which case you don't need all these 6 equations. Then, because in many books you will find that you need only 5 variables and 5 equations. So it can be confusing. But I'm saying the 6 variables and 6 equations. But it depends on what is the equation of state. If the equation of state is like this, then you can live with 5 variables and 5 equations. In this case, we need only rho, B, T as 5 variables, and continuity equation, Euler equation, and equation of state. And these are the 5 equations. Continuity equation is 1, Euler equations are 3, and then there is equation of state. That is 5 variables and 5 unknowns. So we are talking about perfect fluids, so that I said that you can take either this or this, entropy equation or energy equation. But in the case of imperfect fluids, there is no entropy conservation. You can only write an inequality. But of course, energy balance has to be there. In the case of for imperfect fluids, you don't have this, but you continue working with energy equation. So this is like imperfect fluid. No entropy equation, only inequality. So, but in this case, energy equation So derivation of Euler equation will be discussed in the tutorial. Now we can start with relativistic fluid dynamics, but it's 10:30, so let me do it tomorrow.